Hello everybody and welcome back to the Data Playbook. Today we have the Sunday pregame reviews, so let's get right into it. And here we have Carolina at Green Bay, with Green Bay favored on the money line, with a spread of 12.5 and a total line of 43.5. With some of the rankings, Carolina has a pretty good rushing rank, but is pretty bad at stopping their opponents from scoring, as well as scoring themselves. And they have a pretty bad passing rank too. Over with Green Bay, they have a really good passing rank, and they're really good at stopping the rush. They're also really good at using their tight ends, but not so good at stopping them, and just above average on everything else. So I'll just flip these over to the averages to correlate with those. The quarterbacks in this game are Bryce Young and Jordan Love. Bryce Young has averaged 13.2 fantasy points per game, and Jordan Love has averaged 18.7 fantasy points per game. One of the things I haven't mentioned is I try to put in these rankings, and I kind of have them hidden right now because I haven't put them in fully, but it does let you know the rankings of the other quarterbacks in the leagues and how they stack up. Also for turnovers, you have Bryce Young with 5 interceptions and 2 sack fumble losses, as well as a rushing fumble loss. With Jordan Love, you have 2 passing interceptions and 1 fumble loss due to a sack. I'll flip over the averages, and you have their breakdowns. If we look how this correlates to what they take from their running backs in terms of their carry share, you have Bryce Young with 8.1%, and over here with Jordan Love at 12.5%. So not a ton like we've seen with some of the more heavy rushing kind of quarterbacks out there. The running backs in this game are Rico Dowdle, who's surpassed Chuba Hubbard now, and Josh Jacobs. Rico's averaged 12.9 fantasy points per game this season, while Josh Jacobs has averaged 19.5. With no turnovers between the two of them, I'll switch over to the averages, and you can look at their weekly breakdowns. But if we look at their carry share, you have Rico Dowdle with 47.75%, which is the largest share, now being the starter and everything. He did take over from what Chuba Hubbard had before, when Chuba Hubbard got hurt, but he still owns quite a bit of share at 35.5%. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how they use these two in tandem more. With Josh Jacobs, he's just the largest share of rushing by far, with 62.3% of the team's carry share. Your number one receivers in this game are McMillan and Matthew Golden. McMillan has 12.5 fantasy points on average per game this season, while Matthew Golden averages 7.3 fantasy points per game. With no turnovers, we'll just go straight to the averages and look at their breakdowns, as well as their receiving share, where McMillan has 33.7% of the team's total receiving share, which is the largest portion of the team, which is much more spread out after his large portion. And Matthew Golden has a smaller piece for being the number one receiver. That's less than this 20%, so somewhere around 18, maybe 17%. And quickly looking at the number 2 receivers with Xavier and Christian. Xavier averaging 7.8 fantasy points this season, and Watson averaging 12.5. No notable turnovers, so there's our averages. And for their team receiving share, you have Xavier with 10.5% of the team's total receiving yards, and Christian with about 5% of the team's total receiving yards. Ending up with your tight ends, Jatravion Sanders and Tucker Kraft, with Sanders getting 5 average fantasy points per game, and Tucker averaging 16.2, with no notable turnovers. We'll just look at the averages. And if we look at their receiving share, you have Sanders with 7.3% of the team's total receiving yards, and over here with Tucker Kraft, you have 27.3% of the total receiving yards. So it would seem like if Green Bay wanted to use their tight ends on a team that's not very good at stopping tight ends, or they use their passing game, which might get stifled by Carolina. But what's most important is Green Bay needs to stop the running game from Carolina, and I think you'll have Green Bay pretty much dominating this game. So that's all I have for this game today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment on what else you might want to see in the future. Other than that, thank you so much for watching.